And Scalar454 here. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're putting in trees. So stay tuned. The trees we are using are Super Trees from Scenic Express. It's a big box, so we'll pop it open. You sure get a whole ton of them. You can see the fibers are very, very fine, so they're going to make great trees, even in N scale. I think this is a whole big chunk. It is. Wow. One thing I did expect was there's a whole bunch of curled ends on it, and so all the trees will be bent. We don't want that, so in an attempt to fix that, what we're going to do is we're going to cut off the branches that we want. Then we're going to soak it in some hot water, and then we're going to use some gravity and a little bit of weight to try to straighten the back out. I gotta say, there are some really cool colors in here. I don't think I'm going to put foliage on everything. I think I want to have some trees or bushes that are just dry like that. I think it would look really cool. We'll start with this much and see how it goes. Before I soak my trees, I removed as many of these little dried up leaves as I could, just because I didn't think they looked very good. So I have it in some hot water. It's not scalding, but it's warm. And I'll leave it in there for about 5-10 minutes and we'll hang them out to dry. I put them on clothes hangers and I use some clothes pegs to hook them on and to add some weight. In some cases, a few clothes pegs just for extra weight, and in some cases, some clamps. So I'll leave these out here to dry for a couple hours, and then I'll bring them inside and let them dry for a good 24 to 48 hours, and we'll see how effective all this was. I gave it the weekend to let these dry. Are they straight? Did it help? Well, sort of. For the most part it did. But there are going to be some that are still curved, and, you know, what can you expect? It's a natural product. It's there's imperfections, and I think it's something we can definitely live with. For the leaves, I'm using 3 different colors with 3 different companies. Super Leaf, a Scenic Express product. Light green. Good luck finding this stuff. It seems like they have been out of stock forever. Scene Masters dark green. It says HO scale. I don't even know if they have it in N scale. If they did, I thought I would have ordered that, but I've had this for a while. In any case, very nice looking product. It seems like it's very uniform and whatnot, but we'll see how that looks on an N-scale tree. And then a light green that's between these 2 colors, and this is from Knock. Now, I am going to test putting the leaves straight with one color, you know, and see how that looks. But I'm also going to do a combination of mixing these and seeing how that looks. If you haven't noticed, the branches are a very light color of brown, and of course that's the trunk of your trees, and that might be too light for you. So I think I'm going to paint at least some of them. I'm going to do an experiment and see what it looks like with some painted a darker brown, and then as the natural color as well. Obviously you would do that before putting on the leaves. We'll spray some of these trunks with Tamiya Brown XF72, thinned out about 50% with IPA. I gotta say, a spray can would probably be a hell of a lot quicker, but I don't want to spend the money. We now need to trim our trees to the height that we want. In N scale, 6 inches is 80 feet in real life, which is about as tall as I'd want to go. I think anything taller than that, and I think it'd look a little bit out of place. Most of my target heights are going to be 3 to 4 inches, which in real life would be about 40 to 50 feet. Be sure to leave some length in your trunk because we're going to stick that into the layout. We want enough there to be strong. Now this big guy, that's way too long, so we're going to bring it down to about there. Yeah, I think that'll be pretty good. Kind of stinks to trim so much of it, but gotta do what I gotta do, I guess, eh? To try to maximize the product and to make fuller trees, I'm going to glue on some of the little branches and just try to fill this out a little bit. I don't know if white glue is the way to do it, but we'll try that to start with at least. It's going to be really hard to do this, to be honest with you. I did some experimenting to see what kind of colors and color combinations I liked. And I found that the dark green by itself was not that great. It kind of just gets lost with the rest of my layout. Whereas the solid light green, the Super Leaf, I really do like it. I think it looks fantastic. I also think that the Super Leaf really fills out the trees and the branches, and you get a lot of coverage with that. But I also found when doing color combinations, if I mixed them all three together, it didn't look that good. But if I do, say, a dark green undercoat first and then put the light green on top of it, I think it looks really good. And then if I use the dark green underneath and the light green on top of that, again, I think that looks really good. So I think I'm going to do some sort of combination between those mixtures as well as just doing the light green by itself, maybe some of the dark green, and also the medium green. This tree right here, that's something I did a long time ago using some sticks and twigs I found locally and putting on some Woodland Scenics coarse turf. We'll start adding leaves to our trees. I have a tub of diluted white glue. It's about a 2-to-1 ratio, and I'm just going to dip the tips of our branches because we don't want the trunks of our trees covered in glue because we don't want leaves on them. And then I'll just go ahead and start figuring out what combination of colors I want on which tree. There's a couple different ways you can do the glue, but I do find this works relatively well. So we'll go something like that. This one I'm going to do a dark base on. And I'm sprinkling the dark kind of from the top. Not going to get a lot of coverage on this go, but there is going to be a second round, to say the least. Full coverage of the light green. Why not, right? It's our world, do whatever you want. Sprinkling from the top. The leaves kind of fall on it. It looks cool. You can also use a multi-purpose spray adhesive. I use the LePage. This stuff works great. You just have to, again, spray the tips. You're not getting too crazy with it. Add our leaves. For the second coat, rather than dipping it into glue, I really do prefer the spray adhesive. Very light coat on the edges, that's all. Go in and sprinkle on our lighter color. Looks pretty good. We have a whole bunch of trees made and ready to go. Lots of different colors and different variations. I think it looks great. I didn't get as many of the small ones as I expected, so I may need to make some more. Got a whole bunch of the big ones, which might need to do some trimming on them because they are pretty big. They are the 6 inches and under, but still. They might seem a little bit out of place, we'll see, but we're not going to know until we get it on the layout, so let's get to work on that. Small drill bit to drill into the layout. Because this one's going in on its side, I'm going to go a little bit on an angle. May need access to different size drill bits. Put this big guy in there. As I work through the process of installing these trees, I'm finding that the rule of thumb, that is, a single tree is not ideal, group of 2 is never a good thing, always do groups of 3 or more, preferably in odd numbers, so 3, 5, 7, whatever, but that doesn't really apply on my layout. You can see this group right here just doesn't look all that great, whereas over there I've added up to now 7 trees and it's looking better. It's looking pretty good, but it's still maybe a little bare. Maybe I need to add some more smaller trees. And then over here, I have a single tree, and it looks awesome. So I'm really liking that. So the point is, the rule of thumb is not a rule. You know, just work with what the layout is kind of telling you. And I'm also finding this is taking a lot longer than I expected because there's a lot of planning that goes involved. I thought it was just going to be, you know, boop, 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 add trees and away you go. Nope, at least not for me. So I'm going to work through this and I'll show you what it looks like as I'm done. I think that'll do it for now. I added 36 trees to the layout, give or take. It may not look like it, but I did. And I really, really like the added dimension that trees give. I am a big advocate for building height into your layout, adding layers. I think it makes the layout much more realistic. But you can't just do that from trees alone. You have to have some supporting elements to complement those trees. Like right here, we have a tree that's just standing by itself. It looks okay, but if you come down on an angle and you start to bring in the fence and the loading dock, it looks a lot better. Over here, we have 2 trees, but when we compare that with, you know, the building and the boxcar, it looks great. If we look at this tree from this view, it looks a little boring because it's just got grass and tree. But if we come over to the side here, well, now we have the tree and we have some foliage and it looks a lot better. And that's just one lesson I learned during this whole process, and I learned a whole bunch. We talked about the rule of thumb where you're supposed to build in odd groupings of 3 or more. I don't think that applies. I have 1 tree, 2 trees, 2 trees, 1 tree, 1 tree, and I think they all look great. And then, over here, I mentioned earlier that it looked a little bit weird when I had, 5 trees over here and then 3 trees here. I added a whole bunch more and they look great now. So, you really just have to build to what looks good on your layout. Even though I showed it earlier in the video, I learned to not use liquid glue to attach to leaves, because what happens is the leaves are made of like a papery material and it soaks into the glue and it creates like a dark blotchy glob and it doesn't look very good. Use a spray adhesive. It looks so much better. Plus, it's a lot quicker. You can just spray it, throw the leaves on, maybe even add another layer of adhesive spray just to secure it all and hold it all together, and then it's ready to go on the layout. It's great. I learned that there's quite a lot of planning required. Let's say you have 12 trees ready to go. You may have to test all 12 trees in one spot just to see how it looks, and you have to pick the one that looks the best for you. I learned that you have to consider access points to, cleaning the track, or also your view. So obviously I have a bunch of track in here that needs to get cleaned occasionally. I didn't want to obstruct any of that. So I don't have any trees in this area right here. Nothing to obstruct my reach into the bridge. Also, the view. My view is around here. And I like my refinery, and I didn't want to obstruct that view by putting trees right in this area. Same thing with the tunnel. Down here is one of my favorite views, and I didn't want to obstruct that view of trains going in and out of the tunnel. So, no trees in there. So just things like that you have to consider. And not that this is a lesson, but the real world has dead trees, so throw them into your layout. I think it gives a realistic contrast in your forested areas. Also, put in some downed branches and tree trunks. It looks awesome. You can also use all the little scraps as bushes. I didn't glue this down, as I might go ahead and throw some coarse turf or some sort of foliage on top of that. Or maybe I'll leave it just bare like this and consider it some dead bushes. Either way, I think it'll look great. Now, speaking of glue, I didn't glue any of my trees to my layout, which makes them completely removable, or I can change them at any time. That'll do it for this video. I'm sure I'll add more trees and other kind of foliages in the future. Plus, I have this whole other section to put in still. Make sure you subscribe so you can keep updates on that. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button. And as always, thanks for watching.